you doing? If you could see me properly, you'd be able to see my incredible ensemble that I'm wearing now. This is an old stained Superdry hoodie that's, I think, 196 years old. And beneath this, I'm wearing some leopard print baggy pyjama bottoms, which I know that every single one of you is thinking, that's a look that I want to get. That's the kind of thing, you know, like they do on those shopping sites where they've got the buy the look. You're all desperate, aren't you? My God, that old vintage Superdry and those baggy, pretty cheap looking leopard print trousers are the things that I need in my life right now. It's like a lockdown look, isn't it? How are you all feeling? It's been a weird weekend, hasn't it? With the news about our health minister or our ex-health minister. Goodness me, who's got time for an affair during that kind of period? I don't know. Apparently he did. But I guess a lot of you are probably feeling a little bit annoyed because of the way that your mental health has been impacted and the fact that it seems to be quite a regular issue with the place that we're meant to trust giving us directions that they don't follow. And it's all very well for people to talk about the fact that there is this distinction between us and them, but on a mental health level, it's really painful to know that you have sacrificed a lot of your freedoms and have lost a lot in all different directions, and that the very people that we're meant to be able to trust, and it's meant to be in our own best interest to do that, actually don't believe in what they're pushing. And if we don't acknowledge the fact that that's going to hurt people or make people feel really sad and difficult and desperate, then I don't think we're doing a really good job. And it's unsurprising that 2 million people went to London for the protests on Saturday, because people are starting to feel that they're not having that voice, and mental health requires a voice. There's no point us saying that we're not talking about the stigma of mental health because, you know, we're all more open about our mental health struggles. It's not true, because if there is no coverage of people seeking to have their voice heard, then we're not listening to mental health. And I think that that's one of the things that's really connecting with me at the moment, is more and more people are getting in contact with me and feeling frustrated. But I think frustration is maybe misrepresented. I don't think it's frustration. Of course, it is frustrating what we're going through, how we're experiencing the world right now, the limitations on our lives, the limitations on our children's lives in particular. But I wonder whether it's not really frustration. It's more this sense of being unheard. I think that's it, this sense of not being heard, which in itself would obviously example frustration. But that is what I think is really powerful at the moment. And this willingness to just allow people to direct us, fail us, and then just swan off without really any recourse is indicative of how poorly we treat the impact of all of these things that have happened on our mental wellness. And it just really sticks with me today. I've been gestating what the feeling is. Obviously, I do have time because I don't make that many conscious choices over my fashion sense. So therefore I do have periods in between doing work where I can philosophize around these things. And I think that that is a really connected experience for me, that we're not being heard and we're not being given a sense of value. And without that, mental health cannot thrive. So for a lot of you who are getting in contact with me and saying, why do I feel stuck? Why do I feel like so trapped? Why do I feel so defensive? A lot of you are telling me that you're defensive at the moment, that you feel that when people are talking to you, they're asking you questions that they have no right to ask you about. And I bring that down just as a calm and kind reminder, compassionately, to everybody who comes to this clinic, whether you're pro-lockdown, anti-lockdown, whether you're pro-vax or pro-choice, everybody is welcome here. But can we all agree that it is not acceptable on any level to be asking people whether they have had medical procedures or otherwise. It is invasive and it is not anybody else's concern. And it's putting people in very challenging situations, and it's causing division, and it's unnecessary. The thing you have to look after is your own health and wellness. And just to remind you before I start the clinic as well, you can never give your power and control over to anybody else to make you better health-wise as a human on a long-term basis. Of course, things like medics are incredible. When you're in an accident, they save our lives. They're who make sure your child survives on the whole if they get some horrible illness. They're incredible. But that's a short-term solution. That's it. The rest is on you. What you eat, the amount of sunlight you get, what you do with your body, how you treat yourself, whether you drink too much alcohol or abstain because it's bad for you, and so on and so forth. By the way, I'm not saying alcohol is really bad for you. I definitely like a gin and tonic. I'm saying it's all about excess. But we have to stop thinking that somehow there is a way of us giving away our sense of self to another to give us back our safety and sanctity of our bodies. That belongs beginning, middle and end with you. And let's just stop being so invasive around these kind of questions. And I would absolutely state that no matter what your view, we should all speak that way. If we're asked that question, it does not matter where you are, it's nobody's business. And if we don't do that as a group, it's going to make people feel that they have to identify themselves as one or the other, and it's not fair. So I'm just really feeling that today, particularly with light of the utter and consistent hypocrisy that is so frustrating, that if I hear the words build back better, the person who says it to me needs to duck. It's as simple as that. That said, let me move on to mental health, which I actually do hear, and I actually do know you're struggling, and everyone I know is struggling to some degree. And just to say as well, I was having this conversation with my youngest, who sadly his friend isn't with us anymore because of this situation, and it happened the other day. It happened on Saturday morning when we found out, and we were kind of talking about the way that they feel as young people. And I was trying to highlight the fact that when you're a young person, when you think about the options around you, you don't really have that many options anyway. And you've had all these things taken from you, but still, compared to, shall we say, somebody who travels for a living and relies on an income because of that's what they can do, and they can't do any of those things at the moment. You know, that's where a world has gone from being this wide to being very insular and very small. Young people, it's less an experiential and more philosophical. There is like a spiritual experience for these young people where they feel that their world, albeit that it might not have changed massively, they're still living in the same house with the same parents, they're still in their locality, probably seeing some of their friends, at least talking to them and so on and so forth. It's not about the fact that they are having these physical constraints so tightly put on them. It's the mental constraints about what is being reduced in our world around us, and the division and the fear about the future. And that is very real for young people. And as you all know, from day one, I was trained in safeguarding. It is a big part of my life. Therefore, young people and the very vulnerable are my main priority and concern, and they are the most denied in this experience. But there is something right now about that feeling of being trapped, and I think we all resonate with it. That's the common feature, and that's why 2 million people went to London on Saturday. Not because they are any anti the things they're accused of, that they are pro-human choice. They are pro-freedom, they're pro-democracy. And it's not fair that the way that the MSN are kind of making that into a ball of something that isn't true. Because in our generation, those things will have consequences. And in future generations, what will they say about what we did? What will they say when their eyes reflect on this time? And that for me is something that I think is really quite sad. And I'm just acknowledging that because I'm getting a lot of people, like I said, feeling very angry, defensive, trapped, really stuck and fearful. and all of those feelings are all right, and exacerbated when those who should know better, do better, lead better, fail miserably. Just all I'm going to say. Any tips on getting to sleep easy? Okay, so a lot of people are overthinking at the moment. I've put this together because quite a few people have asked me about sleep, somebody on Twitter, but also some emails. So sleep is one of those really frustrating things because we need it to detoxify our brain. So for a long time, we didn't really understand why we slept. There wasn't necessarily a method or reason that we could understand as to why people sleep. For example, there was a woman in Australia who had like the world record for sleeping for like 28 minutes a night. That was it. Whereas if I had 28 minutes a night, I would not survive. I would literally just not survive. I need sleep. As we've grown to understand more, the research indicates that part of it is to remove toxins from our body. So it's a healing experience. And again, when there are so many things that feel chaotic, when there's so a lack of order, you can imagine that the very thing that habits require is that sense of rhythm. And it's all been chaotic. Add to that, somebody said this to me the other day, I wrote something about positive vibrations and they went, oh, I get all the things that you've said, I just don't get the vibrations bit. I think that people believe that when you write something like positive vibrations or raising the energetic level, that it's something to do with some idealism, spirituality, and so on and so forth. Now, for me, on an energetic level, spirituality definitely is a big part of that because I have a deep faith. However, in physics, forget anything to do with psychology or transcendental work or any kind of philosophies about any kind of spirituality. Just bring it back to science. Our energy, the way that we expel that into the world, has impact. And anybody who's ever walked into a room after an argument, you know the way it feels. You don't have to have been involved in it. You just sense it. I refer to it in therapy when I'm working with clients as a thickness in the room. Whenever it's full of something, it's palpable. So there's a lot of negative energy going in the world right now. So again, you've got this issue with order being chaotic now. Then you've got this issue of energy that's being expelled by so many people who are struggling. And then you have individuals who are really taking that in. Some of us are better. Some of us got little doors that just close and we're able to kind of shut them. Others are very open to that. So you have to think when you're looking at your sleep, okay, who am I around? We don't often talk about that. We tend to be very much into, well, healthy night habits, which I'll come on to in a minute. But before you even get to that, who are you around? Who are you spending your time with? What's the energy like? Are you around positive people? Are you being brought down by people? That's the thing you have to answer. Secondly, are you detoxing yourself from this horrible negativity right now? Because if all you do is watch the news, then your brain is triggered to attach itself to negative. The reason the papers are full of negativity isn't because they want to make you more negative, it's because they want to sell their papers and they know that the brain connects more with negative. It's a fight, flight, freeze response. We were born with a primordial sense of if we are going to get attacked, we need to take note of that. So when you're watching the TV and it's negative, your brain activates a much more clear response and attachment to that because it's thinking, because we are still primordial in parts of our brain, I need to know that information because we might get attacked. So if you're watching the news a lot or reading the papers a lot, you are attaching yourself to that. So again, how much of that work are you doing? Are you switching off? Because you shouldn't have TV on for at least 2 hours before you go to bed. You shouldn't have your iPhone or your Android on for 2 hours before you go to bed. But I am realistic, and I know that most of you will think that is insane because you're so programmed now. The reason that TV is called a program is because it's programming you. That's why we call it a program. Same with computers, same with your laptops. It's all about programming. So if you're going to give into that and spend time, watch something like Schitt's Creek. Watch something funny, because at least that's going to give you a big positive distraction compared to attaching yourself to the negatives. So that's another thing that I'd say to do to help with sleep. If you can get some of those low light glasses, which gets rid of the blue and white light, that would also help if you insist on watching TV or being on your phone before bed. The other things that you can do on a chemical level, no caffeine, of course, you know that. A lot of people still do it. I used to before I gave up caffeine. Used to have coffee before bed and then wonder why I didn't sleep well. Alcohol, I know it's great. I know it feels like you're soothing yourself. It'll give you a terrible night's sleep in spite of the fact that you'll feel that it doesn't and that it actually works for you. So try to avoid that. Again, some people will argue that weed is really great for sleep. There are people in California who prescribe that in other countries, and so it depends on the type that you're taking. I would always argue if there is very high levels of THC, then you're probably not going to get the kind of sleep that's going to give you the best rest. And again, they're the chemical ways that you've got to kind of look at trying to alleviate some of that from your world so that you get a better, more rested night's sleep. Then what can you do biologically that will change the way that your rhythm works to some degree? Get yourself outside for 2 hours a day. You need to, because you don't get enough white light in the UK to help with the melatonin regulation and the serotonin release, which is what you want. You want the serotonin to be released, you want the melatonin to regulate. Otherwise, you want to eat lots of starchy food, lots of sugar, and you want to just curl up in a ball and sleep. But actually, it's not a good sense of that because you're exhausted and you're reaching for the wrong things. Getting outside in the white light helps you, really helps to regulate the brain chemicals. Also, take a really hot bath 2 hours before you go to bed. And I mean really hot. The hottest you can do without burning yourself. I want you a nice red colour when you come out. And you want to stay in that bath for at least 20 minutes. And then you're going to take 2 hours of cooling down. And at the point about 2 hours after that bath, your body will be very relaxed and ready for sleep. We know that that works. Science tells us it works. Good science. So therefore, you can kind of create that healthy habit. Then don't go to bed until you're tired. That's an obvious one, but a lot of people have got this kind of rigid idea of when they should go to bed, either earlier or later. Some people are like, oh, I'm really knackered, it's 9 o'clock, but I can't go to bed because my bedtime's 10. Go to bed earlier. There's a recent research put out, which is 840,000 people were studied. It's a lot of people. And they were told to go to bed an hour earlier than they usually do and to wake up an hour earlier than they usually do. There was a 25% drop in severe depression rates and a 40% rise in positive mental health. That is a big statistic. So look at how you can change your rhythm of sleeping as well. And then when it comes down to the overthinking part, that's about training. It really is. It's about almost making a pact with the self. This is what I have to do, and it's what I've told my clients to do in the past, and it takes a little bit of practice. By the way, if you struggle getting off to sleep, reading is the answer. Reading is good. Find a book and read it because that exhausts the brain as well. But when it comes down to like going to bed, making that contract with yourself, which is, this is not the time or place to worry. This doesn't make sense. I won't resolve anything right now. So I'm going to allow myself to just put that to the side, and 20 minutes tomorrow, maybe about dinner time, when I allow myself to just come back to that, I'll give it some real conscious thought. That training yourself to think that way is really helpful. I do loads of meditation stuff on my wellbeing channel. Please go on there. You can get it all for free, and essentially it will help you to wind down. All of those things matter. If you really struggle with sleep in the long term and you can't get out of that cycles of thought and you're just not getting any, it is worth going to the GP. They probably will give you a prescription of something like Zopiclone, which is a short-term resolution to that issue. But personally, I think it comes down to going, okay, this chaos at the moment, it makes sense that I'm seeping in this negative energy. It's not just that I'm struggling because there's something wrong with me. It's that I'm an empathic human being that is involved in a very big struggle in the world right now. A lot of negativity exists. Sorry for the lecture on sleeping, but I felt like I'd just amalgamate it all into one place. Job, I've written on the next one because somebody had written on Twitter about the fact that they are in a menial job and they don't know how to get out of it. So first off, there is no menial job. I need to say that. I come from a world of academic snobbery and arrogance, where certain individuals believe because they have a title, a registration, the letters after their name, that they are superior to individuals who do not. That is on them. That is their problem. That is their attitude issue. And that is not reality. Everybody's time is as precious. Everybody's job is as meaningful. Who do I think are the heroes in all of this? Well, I'll be honest with you, I think my local supermarket cashiers are pretty damn good, and those who stock the shelves. I really do. Never heard them moan, never seen them ask for anything. Nobody clapped for them outside. They just quietly and contentedly got on with it without any need for anything other than a smile and a thank you. At least when you could smile. I can smile because I don't wear a mask because I'm exempt. Simple as that. But I make a massive effort to smile at those people because they've kept us going. Like, I know people don't like Amazon. I get it. And I appreciate people that rich don't deserve to be that rich. I get it. But my Amazon driver's amazing. You know, first name terms kind of thing. What a wonderful person to see, because they've always got that kind of positive attitude. And again, they're the kind of people who you could say are in menial jobs, but they're not. So I think, first of all, just change your attitude to what you do. Because if you've got an attitude that says, my job is menial, you're, one, undervaluing the position, and secondly, undervaluing the self. You have a job, but you're saying that you don't feel as fulfilled in that position as you feel potentially that you wish to be fulfilled. So that's about purpose and vision. There is nothing that stops you from succeeding. Giving Amazon as an example, that guy started in a warehouse selling books, okay? He wasn't some massive super brain. He was just somebody who came up with an idea. It was a good idea. He did it, and then he realized he could expand that to a drop shipping network where he could basically make himself a trillionaire or whatever. That's the way he made it work. He began small. So when people are made unemployed, I remember doing a talk once and somebody had lost their job and they were saying, you know, they had all these dreams. And I was like, you can say you've lost your job, or tomorrow you can set up your own company and call yourself a director. Everything's about mindset. So like I said, there's no menial job. But now it comes down to, well, okay, what's my purpose and what's my passion? So what is your purpose? What is your passion? What do I love doing? What am I naturally blessed with? There is not one human being listening to this now who is not blessed with something unique. You know what I say, guys. If you're new to this channel, I always give this example. Mother Nature has blessed you with your own your own identity, your own fingerprint. That's it. That's the mark. You are a masterpiece. Nobody else is like you, unless there is an identical twin watching, in which case I will give you, on a DNA level and a fingerprint level, you will be identical. But that's the only time. And then you're still going to do something unique. Every single one of you has got that mark because there's something special about you in this world. And if you allow yourself to look at passion and purpose and say to yourself, well, this is what I really want, then that's your strategy, that's your goal. And then it's breaking it down into achievable milestones. The biggest myth and the biggest problem I have with Western society is very often a lot of you will get to a point where you'll say to somebody, I want to do this. And it might be, I want to be a singer, I want to be a dancer, I want to be an artist, I want to be a brain surgeon, I want to go and work for NASA and fly to the moon. And often there'll be a person that you tell with limited thinking. And that limited thinking will go, okay, but what's your plan B? Never ask somebody for a plan B. And often we've been carrying this baggage of what our plan B is, and we institute the plan B. It's a safety mechanism, and it's just tosh. It's the worst message that anybody can give you. So what was your plan A? What is your plan A? And also, a plan A doesn't have a sell-by date. It really doesn't. A plan A can always be instituted. And people can say, well, I wanted to be a famous actor and I'm now in my 60s. Okay, but the plan A of being an actor still exists. You can still go and do that. You might not be like Angelina Jolie, but that's okay, because passion and purpose isn't about pounds. Passion and purpose is about doing what we love, performing in a way that we want to. So ask yourself that. So get rid of this idea of menial jobs. Recognize that everybody has intrinsic worth. Figure out what is it that I know I'm destined in my heart to want to do. And then how do I break that into small objective goals to actually achieve it? It's a bit like people say to me now, like if they want to get into mental health, a lot of young people get in touch with me and say, how do I get into mental health? And I'm like, when you're 18, go and volunteer for SOS, the charity that I'm an ambassador for. You can do it from your own home. You can chat to people who are struggling, and it's not like the Samaritans, although the Samaritans do what they do. It's much more chatty. You can engage with people who need help, and you can be there and get loads of experience, which helps them on the journey to being a counsellor or a psychologist or some kind of therapist. There are all these options, you know. You don't become an international superstar without, first of all, going and doing those jobs that will get you there. Everybody has to break it down that way. That's what I do. And if there's one thing that I really believe in, it's that there isn't a fair system. You know, Brooklyn Beckham's just bought a $10.9 million first home. That's not fair. But that's life, right? The elites, the people who are really well connected, they just choose a career and can do it. Look at how many famous people have mums and dads who are famous. It's the YTS for the elites. It's always going to be that way. So it can feel really frustrating when you look at how unequal the world is, how people are given these opportunities really with less talent than many out there. And yeah, you're going to have to fight harder, and you're going to have to work more, and you're going to get more rejections, and no one's going to hand it to you on a silver spoon. But let me tell you, that achieving it and getting where you want to go means that you won't have anywhere near the problems that people do when they're handed it on a silver spoon. Because if you're just given something, you can't value it. You just can't. You have to earn something. When you earn it, you just value it. You really value it. I'll always be the working class girl from Bury who has no idea how I ended up getting in the media, because I wanted to be a writer for Just 17 and I wanted to be an agony aunt on This Morning. That was my dream when I was a kid. Okay, I did want to be Oprah as well, but I knew that Oprah was probably stretching it a little bit, particularly because I wasn't American for a start. But they were the things that I really wanted. And hey, I do my Oprah here. My Oprah doesn't have to be making me billions of pounds. I don't have to own a TV network. This is my Oprah, doing it right now. That's it. I achieved them. And I had a lot of obstacles in my way, but I absolutely feel the privilege of that position, and never ever lose sight of the privilege of it. That's what earning things does. So set yourself that goal, work that plan, know the knocks will be harder for you and the doors will be harder to open, but always know it's achievable. And when you get there, albeit somebody like myself, not rich, I'm very average, but nonetheless, I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. And that is key to a happy life. We have to stop working so we can live, and we have to, just really connect with the fact that living is about really getting what we want from life. And it's not to do with money. Money makes it easier. Don't let anyone tell you anything else. Of course, we all know that. But it's about purpose and passion. It really is. And no one's too old to find that purpose and passion. I went missing last week. Police registered me. Took large overdose and slept 6 hours in local park. Was hypothermic when made at home, soaked and frozen. I've now lost my whole family and see me as a burden and obviously an embarrassment as police chapped the door at 3 a.m. No hospital help. Police referred me to social services. So grateful. Nobody can see me for 20 days. This isn't the first incident. I live in chronic pain. I'm worried as 20 days is a long time for me. Any advice would be very much appreciated. Thank you. I'm going to assume that you're an inpatient then, because you're saying that you can't see anybody for 20 days. If that's the case, it's good that you can't see anybody, because you don't want to take any pressures. You don't want to feel like an embarrassment. You don't want to feel that people are judging you. That's a terrible thing that your family are relating to you in that way. It might be that you're just a bit paranoid though. Have to acknowledge that as well, right? When we're not feeling well mentally, often we can blow things out of proportion because we're in a state of pretty dire mental health. So try not to think about how your family feel. Also, you know what, I'm going to be dead honest. People do feel like people with mental health issues are a burden sometimes. It's not because you are, it's because they love you, and it's frustrating. When people have that kind of visceral, cerebral reaction to somebody else's behaviour, it's actually from a place of love. It comes out as frustration, anger, annoyance, as if they just want you to just stop. But that comes from a place of non-neutrality. You don't want neutral. Wait a minute, I'm getting a thing saying people can't help for 20 days. let me carry on with what I was saying. It comes from a place of non-neutrality. So you don't want people to not have a reaction. I know it's frustrating for you. I know you want people to be understanding and compassionate. I know you're probably frustrated that they're not being positively stroking within the mental health situation you're in, but it comes from a place of love, even though it's translated to you as something like embarrassment or shame or annoyance. If they had no feelings, that would mean that you didn't have meaning. You are somebody of meaning, and their display of that is just something that you interpret negatively, which I get because I understand that feeling, but it comes from a place of them being frustrated because they care for you. Now, 20 days is a long time. When you're in crisis, you need crisis helpers, right? Simple as that. As I've said, SOS initiatives, they offer telephone chats. They are chats. They're not like Sam's. You can ring up and have a proper chat. They also do email correspondence. So why don't you look at doing that? Why don't you look at calling them and maybe having a couple of calls a week and just allowing yourself to get that support and just explaining what's going on for you? Secondly, you have to ask yourself about this chronic pain. Chronic pain is going to be massively exacerbated by stress and anxiety. It always is. We all know that. If you get a migraine, yeah, we all know that feeling where the more we think about the pain, the more we feel it, the more kind of tense we get, the more we feel really, really unwell. When you've got chronic pain that's there consistently, and just to let people know, when people talk about chronic pain, it doesn't mean that somebody actually has a condition that is palpable. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the person has anything that's wrong with them that a medic could go, oh, this is causing the pain. Imagine slicing your hand open. You know that your pain receptors are like, oh my God, I've sliced my hand open. Yeah? And you look at it and it hurts for a few minutes, right? And then you might get a plaster or you might wrap something around it and the pain ebbs. You've acknowledged it, you've dealt with it, and it ebbs. With chronic pain, often the receptors that note that, they don't turn off. So it's like having that open wound the moment that it occurred, but on a consistent basis, which is deeply debilitating. And it's one of the problems that a lot of people miscommunicate understanding of, because they especially believe that it's going to be something that you could say, well, it's this particular condition that is causing me this particular pain. That's really challenging for people. So when people have chronic pain, it feels like it's endless. So I'm imagining that you just wanted to end that situation. But you can do things with chronic pain. Like clinical hypnosis is good, really good for chronic pain. And I mean, 80% of people say that when they have clinical hypnosis, not hypnotherapy by practitioners, not to say that practitioners who do a weekend course can't be brilliant practitioners. I'm just saying it's specific, the research, to clinical hypnotists, people who are hypnotherapists who've been trained clinically and have the right understanding of how to manage it. If you could look at getting some help with either a private clinical hypnotherapist who specifically helps to manage chronic pain, ideally NHS registered but works privately, so you can get yourself in there, that would be really helpful. The same with meditation programs. The same with really experiencing what you can do with your diet to look at reducing inflammation. I would argue and hazard a guess, I'm not a professional in this at all, but you might want to look at an alkali diet. I've said this before to everybody listening, if you can start taking kefir every single day, get your grains off Amazon, get it cultured, grow it, ferment it, drink it every single day. If you're vegan, you can do it in water. It is absolutely life-changing. I cannot express enough how I would advocate that every one of you, whether you can't imagine anything worse than drinking fermented milk or fermented water, you've got to think about the bigger picture. The microbiomes that settle the gut, everything is gut-based. Think about it. When you have that bad news, it's gut-based. When you feel depressed, there's that gut-based feeling. When you get that sense of excitement, it's gut-based. Gut is everything. And the brain and the gut are so connected that the more that you can calm the gut, the better. And with chronic pain, that's a big part of it. All of those things are things that you can have control over. The repeated ODing, wanting to escape, a permanent escape to a potentially temporary scenario, is not because you're failing, it's because you're not thinking of alternatives. maybe you need to tune back in to what life used to mean to you and what variables were in that life. What's changed? How's it changed? How can you reintroduce the things of meaning? Because I have lived a long enough life to see people in terrible situations transform. There is so many examples of that, and concentrate on those examples. Concentrate on bringing back some of the stuff that had meaning to you and try to connect with that. Hi Emma, my partner has complex PTSD, only diagnosed just over a year ago. He's an ex-veteran, completely understand. RAF, was also adopted at birth, something he realises now has caused issues with attachment. Absolutely, very common. Add to that mortar fire and being in a burning plane as well. His ex-wife being unfaithful to him when they were married, and he was on detachment. And I have a partner that after EMDR treatments has suppressed anger and won't let me in at all. We don't know his triggers, as he won't tell us. Very difficult for us. Any advice on what EMDR is in detail and what we can do to support? We only seem to make him angry just being. I give him my time. He doesn't want me to give him space, and then he wants me to know. It's very upsetting and confusing. Thank you, Emma. Also wants to know if there's help for me. So EMDR is basically eye movement and reprocessing desensitization, basically. So it's a way of making the memories that are stored in a place that they shouldn't be stored be returned to the place that they should be stored. So the hippocampus is a part of the brain that has a date stamp. And if I were to say to you, what was your nicest Christmas? You might go, well, 15 years ago when I was a kid, I got a second-hand bike. So that would be me when I was 10. I was bought a second-hand red bike that was like a fake chopper. And it was the best Christmas present I'd ever had. My sister got a bigger second-hand bike, and I can remember it in detail, the colour of it, all of it. My hippocampus date stamped it. It was like, you need to remember this. This is a nostalgic memory that you'll take forward, and in moments of sadness, you can remember that. The birth of my sons, date stamped, yeah? So really important. My dad's death, date stamped. So it allows you to connect with that experience, and it also gives you this really important thread. However, when you are in a position of deep trauma, such as being under mortar fire, nearly dying, watching your friends die, there is an area of the brain called the amygdala. Now that's really helpful when you're avoiding getting killed, running out of the way of a fast car. And when you're in those situations, we've all had it, haven't we? You get that real rise of anxiety, but you don't know what got you out of the way because your hippocampus, your prefrontal cortex, the area of higher functioning, that went out of the window. All that mattered was getting your arse out of that way as quickly as possible. Now the problem is, if the memory is stored there, it can't function in the way that gives you a level of control over it. So with my dad's death, I can go, that was horrifically traumatic. I can remember it in detail. I know why I am triggered when I see somebody hanging in a movie. So I know why when I see somebody in a drama who's hanging, I can't look at it. It's date stamped. I know why I'm feeling it. I know what the connection is. And even though it's very difficult, it's a manageable experience because of that link. Your partner hasn't got that. So your partner's EMDR was about taking the memories, using eye movements, some people use tapping as well, and then helping to reprocess whilst desensitizing. It's almost the neutralizing of the trauma. It's effective, EMDR. However, if you're saying he's got EMDR all done, and he now feels that that has been effective, arguably the neutralization of it would mean that he wasn't repeating these patterns and triggers that are probably causing the resurgence of this. So it could be that he needs some more therapy. It could even be that he needs to look at a different type of therapy, or even get involved with some kind of group support with ex-veterans, or veterans, I should say, not ex-veterans. That would mean they were back in the RAF, wouldn't it? But getting them in a group work dynamic where they can kind of feel connected with people who are in like-minded situations. But if he isn't going through the triggers So he's not having these outbursts or not having flashbacks or not feeling that he feels violent in certain ways, all these horrible things. I remember reading when my son was doing his GCSEs, they had the poetry anthology. There was this really, really, really powerful poet, and he'd gone and worked with veterans and talked about the impact of them coming back from war-torn places. And there was one who had become domestically abusive at times, not often, at times, rarely, but it was obviously a massive change in this very loving relationship. And I'll never forget that his wife was interviewed, and she said that she doesn't worry about him and his reaction, that there's nothing wrong with him, because what he's been through has provoked all of these massive systemic changes in life. She said, I worry about the ones who came back and didn't react like this. I.e., she was saying, what is so human about the man I love is that how can you go through such torture, such horror, and not bring back that pain? That's what she loved in spite of his behaviour. And it really resonated with me, because I thought, yeah, often we see people who come back with CPTSD and with these changes in their behaviours as if there's something wrong with them, when really there's something absolutely right with them. No one should have to go through those kind of experiences. It's totally inhumane to witness death and be under threat of death, and to see children blown up and all the things that go hand in hand. It's why it really upsets me when I see people being really aggressive towards the forces. It's all very well people not wanting people to go and fight. I appreciate it, but these people risk their lives to try to protect us. That's a huge thing that so many of us wouldn't do. I wouldn't do that. I'm a pacifist for one, but I'm not brave enough. That's it. So I think part of it could be to just have those kind of conversations with them, to actually sit and be like, tell me what this was like for you. Help me to see these situations from your perspective. Because when you're in a relationship, it's about relating. And even though it's difficult for him, he doesn't have a right to shut you out. That's what you can do if you're single. And even then, I think if you're single, you have a duty to your family to allow them in. Because otherwise, who are we? I think having some really honest conversations with him about impact, which is, I don't know what it was like for you, but I'm willing to be on that journey of understanding, and I don't need you to make sense of it with me or for me. I just want to be able to hear it. Because if he's unpredictable and he's not making you feel safe, and you never know whether anything will be all right because you're walking on eggshells, that's not an okay position for you to be in. And just because somebody has a mental health issue does not make it acceptable for them to do the things that they do. It's about acknowledging, this is the problem that I have, but this is the work that I'm doing to make it work for us. And that involves investment. You're willing to do that investment. He needs to be willing to do that investment too. So try not to walk on eggshells. If his behaviour is erratic and unfair and unnecessary, you need to call that out in a compassionate way. And you also need to be consequential. Because if he has abandonment issues, at the bottom of it, it may well be that I was not wanted. So therefore, I've tried to prove my worth in life. And part of that could have been going in the forces. I'm going to be a hero. And then all this horrible thing happens. And whilst he is a hero, it backfires. And he's suddenly having to manage all these unmanageable feelings. And it tracks back to, who's going to want me? I am worthless. And then he's in a relationship with somebody who defies that. Well, you're not worthless. I love you. I want to be part of your journey. And then it's like, well, now I'm scared because this makes me vulnerable. This person may abandon me, and that may provoke all those feelings. So there's almost like a self-saboteur within that. So your job really is more to say, you as a partner have responsibility and accountability to me. It's not that I will abandon you. It's that if you choose not to be a willing party in this relationship, you will abandon me. The fact that I will be the one leaving, it will be your doing. And it's bringing that reality and rationale to it so that person can truly understand in a compassionate way. I'm never talking about it in a conflictual way. I'm talking about it in a compassionate way. Does that make sense? So they're the things that I'd do if I were you. Everything is about communication. And believe me, I am an imperfect human being, just like all of you. What I say and what I do sometimes falls short of what I give advice-wise, but I do know definitely that the best place is when people are communicating eloquently with each other, even when it's hard. And also, a big thank you to the fact that your partner did those things and risked their lives for us. Like I said, gone are the days of bunting and congratulations when these people come back from serving the country. Very often it's the opposite, and these boys and girls who grow up into men and women who've done that are, in my opinion, heroic. I'm really struggling at the moment. Your advice would be great. I feel like my ex no longer cares and can just walk away and forget me. My heart is breaking for my son and my little family is broken. Do you know what? It's really tough because you're probably right regarding the relationship. And that's hard to hear. But I'm not going to dress it up because there's no point, and you're intelligent enough to have asked that question, knowing that there is an issue with the feeling. Therefore, you can see the way that he's treating you, which is probably in an ambivalent way, is something that you recognise because you are a good human being with a good level of empathy. So even though it's very painful, at least you're not living with this idea of false hope. You're being open and honest with yourself. You're grounded. You're saying, this man is not responding and reacting to me in a way that makes me feel loved, cared for, or missed. Even though that's hard, well done for acknowledging it. It doesn't make the situation easier, but it makes it real. And it means that you're not holding on for something that isn't going to happen. So let's just put that to the side, that acknowledgement. You have a child. The biggest loss, I think, for any single parent is that sense that this wonder that you've created, this joy of this child that you and this other human being person brought into the world is not valued in the same way as they deserve to be and as you do. And again, if your ex has walked away and isn't being that supportive to you and your family, in spite of the fact that you're separated, they should still be a co-parent, that is their loss. That is their absolute lack of something within who they are. Because that child is a miracle of your creation. And if they are not giving you the time and they're not wanting your child as they should do, they don't have the resources within them. There's something missing within them. There really is. To be able to walk away from a child, there is something lacking in you. And that is why as well, there is something lacking in the way that they are towards you. That doesn't make it easier, but it does mean that what you know about yourself is that you're a really loving human being, that you're a really good parent, and that you crave stability and foundation for your child. That's great, because out there are so many other people who feel that way. And your child will get that stability because you have the person that you are to offer another person who is going to connect with all those great things that makes you the loyal, loving, compassionate, open, and completely steadfast, where your child is concerned, human being. And that makes you deeply attractive. Try to acknowledge that. The other thing that I always feel is when somebody walks away from a relationship, we concentrate on the things that made them good at the time. So we'll look back nostalgically at the things that worked and we'll imagine, why can't we go back to that? Never do that. Particularly because most people can behave for at least 18 months to 2 years. And then after that, that's who you really see. So look at the times that they let you down. Look at the times that they made you feel bad. Look at their behavior now. Like, you're right. How can somebody just walk away from a relationship and a child potentially? What does that say about them? Then ask yourself, is that the family you want? Don't you want to be raised up? Don't you want somebody to make you feel beautiful and special and be there by your side and tell you that if the chips are down, they'll go out and get 5 jobs as long as they can pay the bills and support you in a way that makes you feel that you've got that rock beside you? That's what you deserve. And believe it or not, otherwise, you're going to get over it. It feels like a flippant thing to say, but you will. You'll absolutely get over this person You have this amazing miracle, you've got this child, and that is your child forever. And you would never ever shift those sands so that that didn't happen. You've created something amazing. It's had such worth, that relationship, and yeah, it's come to an end, and that's okay, because it's not meant for you. Your child was meant for you, but there's something else that's going to be meant for you. And when that person walks through the door, it will all make sense. You just need some patience, and you just need to trust. Just trust me. It's going to be okay, and they're going to walk into your life, and it's going to knock your socks off, and it's going to have so much meaning. And you'll reflect on the moment that I'm talking to you now, and you'll think, wow, she was right. I'm in such a better place and space. And if he fails to be the dad that your child deserves, it's okay, because you'll be a great mum, and your child will be loved enough, and it will be okay. But just trust. Trust this is for a reason. Trust it will change in time, and trust that love is waiting for you. It's just patiently allowing it to come. Simple as that. When dealing with people with narcissistic personality disorder, do the same rules apply with trying to communicate, as they will never accept fault? A bit negative about narcissistic personality disorder, if I'm honest. I mean, if the parent, obviously you might want to have a relationship with them, but the most important thing to do is self-protection. Because narcissistic personality disorder, if we're talking about a real narcissistic personality disorder, they will never love you. You will only ever be something that can give them what they need. They will bleed you dry and have no compassion for you. And if they want to lie about everything to get what they want, they'll do that as well. You'll never actually be able to trust them. And essentially, if you think about a shop, a narcissist will expect you not only to give them the shop, but also the cash register and the staff assistant, and not pay anything for it. That's the way it is. It's just they want everything. It's very hard when it comes down to narcissistic personality disorder, because you're going to be a player in their game. You're not going to be a main focus. So it comes more down to, like, do I want this person in my world? And if the answer is yes, you just have to be very straightforward and not allow yourself to be manipulated. So don't become a pawn in their world. Don't be made to feel that because they're asking you to do things that you have to do it. In fact, have very clear boundaries. And the less time spent with them, the better, in my humble opinion. There are other opinions, but I would just have very, very clear boundaries and learn to say no a lot, and not allow them to make you feel bad about yourself, because that's what people will do with that particular disorder. They will look at your vulnerabilities and they will exploit it, and they will exploit them as heavily as they can get away with. That's what I'd say. Any help with PND? If you have postnatal depression now, first of all, what a horrible year to have had with a newborn. As much as we can say, well, if you have a baby, you've had this gorgeous time where you can just be with that child. Well, actually, no, most of us get that anyway. You know, we have our maternity leave, and at that maternity leave, you're going to church halls and having coffee mornings with other mums, and you're starting to have that experience of a village raising a child, not just an individual. For a lot of new mums, the last year has been hideous. It's been catastrophic for them. It's been awfully isolating, and understandably, with 80% of women saying that they get the blues after having a baby, and at least 25% of people suffering from quite severe postnatal depression, it's completely normal to have felt an exacerbation in those kind of symptoms. What can you do? Well, first of all, you can acknowledge that you're not alone. This is something that lots of women go through. You're not broken. It will get better. This is definitely chemical and hormonal, and it will change. And there are things that you can do, such as go and speak to your GP. They might do the Edinburgh scale to look at whether they think your symptoms are requiring something like antidepressants, or you might want to take a more holistic approach and look at doing things like support groups, meditation, really connecting with the inner self regarding the fact that you need to create a reduction in stress and anxiety. Channel Mum has got a postnatal depression course. It's free. You can go on. It does exercises every day, little things that you can do to kind of help you get through. They also have like an SOS chat where mums talk to each other. So that's channelmum.com. But the other thing I'd say is postnatal depression doesn't just miraculously get better. It just doesn't. It takes some time and adjustment. And also, to people listening, when people talk about postnatal depression, a lot of people misunderstand what that means and imagine that the mother isn't that interested in the child, they're depressed and just thinking of themselves. It tends to be completely the opposite. It tends to be that the parent is exhausted but absolutely completely obsessed with making sure that the child is perfectly okay, to a detriment to themselves. So you need as well to have a support structure around you where others are letting you get some rest and recuperation, where you don't feel guilty for that. It's very tiring having a baby. You might have more children as well, I don't know, but you need somebody to take the reins. So try to ask for some help. Try to ask people whether they can come round and give you a couple of hours where you can just sleep. Those pockets of opportunity make such a difference, but trust that it will get better. It will. And like I said, nutrition is important, exercise is important, white light is important, but your tribe is. It's time to start connecting with other mums in your area so you can just go for a coffee and de-stress. If I hadn't had soft play centres and church halls, I don't know what I'd have done when I had my kids, because they are what make you feel like life is a bit more of an adventure and a bit more fun, and it's been taken away. Support has been dissolved in the past year, and it's something that I think the ramifications are being felt really, really far and wide. So just know that there's nothing broken about you. It will get better. But the more that you can do that stuff to kind of enhance your health, from eating a good diet to exercising, the easier it will become. And like I said, that PND course is on Channel Mum and it's free. How can I tell my family I am gay? Oh, it's still really hard, isn't it, that we have to have these conversations, isn't it? That anybody has to think that telling their family that they're gay is something that should be difficult or a challenge, because I just want to acknowledge being gay is normal, right? And maybe we don't talk about that enough because we still have this thing about needing to tell our family, which I completely understand. And that's because of a wider societal prejudice and a conservative stroke religious quasi idea of what is right and what is wrong. But honestly, on a biological level, on a social level, on an anthropological level, being gay is completely normal. And I think know that before you even start talking to your family about that, just really ingest it and be like, being gay is the same as being straight. It just means at some point I'll find that person attractive and that person not attractive. And whoever you meet up with to spend your life with, that's the same as a hetero person meeting up with somebody to spend their life with. So normalize it that way. Secondly, pick the person in your family who you know is your biggest ally. Like the person that you have conversations with and who you just know will get it. And just have that conversation with that person first of all, and just allow them that gift, because it is a gift. Trusting somebody with that information is a gift. I would hope that your family will be as accepting as I would be with my own children and my own parents have been with me about my pansexuality. It's always been something that just makes me who I am. And I think that if you can just acknowledge yourself that way and be like, this does not define me. You're not defined by who you sleep with. You're defined by your actions. You're defined by your intrinsic value to the world. You're defined by the way you treat people. There is nothing that changes between the minute that you haven't told them and the minute you tell them. You're exactly the same person with exactly the same sexuality. So their perception of you does not define who you are. And I also want to say, because I don't think we often talk about the fact that people screw up in their reactions. So you'll go on TikTok or you'll see online my coming out story, and they're the really beautiful ones where everyone's embracing and it's like, I totally love you exactly the same now as I did before. And that is how it should be. It really is. But one member of your family, two members of your family might be like, what? And if you hold on to that moment, forever it will be blackened by that experience. Don't. Allow whoever it is to take their moment. Hopefully it will be, hey, this is no big deal. Just be looking forward to meeting your girlfriend or boyfriend, right? But if they are, oh God, I don't know how to react, or, that's more the programming that they've been handed by society. It's not who they are or what they'll grow into, it's the programming. For example, I've known mums who have found out that their son is gay and they have genuinely struggled. But when you actually extract the information from them about what that struggle is about, it's about the way that society might treat them. They're not concerned about their son being gay, they're concerned about their son's gay experience being prejudiced by the world. So it comes from a place of love. So I hope that you get the best reaction. Please come back and let me know, and you'll always be welcome here. But just, if it isn't perfect in that moment, take a breath, let them process it, and then acknowledge that the way that they come back is what you will judge them on. But whatever happens, know that you being gay is normal and is not something that should cause you any problems in your family. And if it does in the long term, it's on them, not you. You are normal. It is abnormal for anybody to have a negative reaction towards that. Although, like I said, sometimes in shock, people don't react as we would wish them to. Allow them that space, allow them that time. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of who you're becoming. Be proud that you're willing and ready to accept that you're stepping in to who you are in your full glory, and know that whatever this moment is, it will be an utterly outstanding moment in self-truth. So it's not about anyone else. You're stepping into your whole self. You're stepping into your truth. You're acknowledging who you are without shame, rightly so. Big moment. It's all about you, not about them. But kind of say to yourself, this is the moment that I just say, I like me, and I like being exactly who I am. Period. I will get going, chaps, and I will see you again. Just remember, like I said, there's a lot of frustration, but I think a lot of that is about not being heard. So let's just remember that if we can just allow ourselves those feelings, allow ourselves to be expressive of those feelings. Let's stop putting people in positions where they have to answer questions that they shouldn't have to answer. It's none of our business. What people choose to do with their bodies is on them. And also, how can we look at improving our own health? It's on us, not anybody else. Okay, pep talk over. See you soon.